Hello and welcome to Unconventional GMs, our video series where we show you how to run games, often one-shots, with pace, vim and vigour. And today we're playing Candela Obscura from Darrington Press, the print imprint of Critical Role, another YouTube channel not unlike ours, or very unlike it, more likely. Unfortunately, the bleed from powerful magics has seeped through the flare and cut off the start of our video introduction. So this is why you're hearing me do it now. But without further ado, we'll cut to the actual video itself. I'm Guy from the Burn After Running blog, and we've got an array of superstar players to entertain you today. Do you want to introduce yourself, guys, and maybe say who you're going to be playing in this game? Gaz, first of all.
Hello, yeah, I'm Gaz from What Would the Smart Party Do, the UK's premier RPG podcast. And you'll see on this channel quite a bit as me and Guy are doing this together. So as well as doing this UK Role Players podcast on this channel, I do run a lot of convention games as well. So you'll see me out there on the UK if you're there. I'm playing today Cavendish, who is a prestige, a magician. To many, they assume he's just a bit of a charlatan or perhaps has tricks as modern day magic would be in our current world. But secretly does have some power as well, although it's not revealed to anyone what it might be. He's a slender gentleman, well dressed, but a bit threadbare, as if he doesn't make the money out of being a magician that you think he might.
That is absolutely magic, Gaz. Shane, who are you and what are you playing today?
So as advertised, my name's Shane. I'm not a podcaster, I'm not a regular video attendee, but I am a long-time convention GM and a great fan of games. Tonight I'll be playing Albemarle, who is an occultist, a gentleman from a well-to-do family who was haunted his entire life, literally and figuratively, and has now taken it upon himself to try and plumb deeper into the mysteries.
Wonderful. Let's see if you find any mysteries in this session. I hope so, otherwise it'd be quite dull for everyone. Ben, who are you and who are you playing?
Hello, I'm Ben. I'm also one of the hosts of What Would the Smart Party Do? So you've seen me on a few videos and such. And also in a former life, I wrote a role-playing game called The King of Dungeons. But today I am going to be playing Lachlan, an explorer for our circle in Candela Obscura. Someone who has plumbed the very depths of the old city and explored through Tottergrass, Old Fair, all over. And unlike most explorers, I haven't seen strange things out there in the wilderness, but I suspect that run's going to come to an end today.
in about half an hour or so. Lovely. And finally, Jag.
Hello, I am Jag Jagusti on the interwebs. I organise Seven Hills role-playing games convention with Guy, and I make stuff for Foundry VTT, which some of you may be using online to do virtual tabletop playing. Tonight, I will be Valdemar, a sneaky underbelly type character, a slink from the world, who is better at home in the shadows. But knows a person or two in the areas. You can certainly pull a few levers.
Excellent. Look forward to those levers being pulled in this session. So I'm going to do a brief intro to the session, to the setting and the sort of concept of the game and sort of what we're going to do for a setup, as if we do it in a convention. And then we'll kind of crack on straight into the opening scene. At the start, it's worth saying that we're using the quick start rules for Candela Obscura. So obviously there may be some changes to the final game when it finally gets released. And we're actually playing through the quick start adventure as well. So it's a published adventure that's in this quick start. It's available in the link, which we'll probably remember to put below this video in the YouTubes, so you can have a look at it and see what you think of it as well. So Candela Obscura takes place where you're occult investigators for a secret society called Candela Obscura in a sort of fantasy steampunk land, humans only, and sort of gaslight Victoriana sort of turn of the century. There's a city, Newfaire, which sits on top of Old Fair, which was mentioned previously, sort of ancient city built on magical energy, where they plumbed too deep into secrets man was not meant to know, and their civilization fell into ruins. But they're literally underneath Newfaire, so there's lots of stuff going on about there. Most recently, about 3 years ago, the citizens of Newfaire fought back and repelled some invaders from otherwhere, another nation across the sea. So there's lots of sort of consequences and ghosts of that conflict, which was a terrible, huge war that ravaged the whole country. They are rebuilding and just getting back used to being prosperous and wealthy and having enough food and not having to worry about if they're going to be killed by these invaders and not. So a ripe sort of situation there. Most of the people in Newfaire don't really know about magic or the occult, despite it being in these adventures almost everywhere they look. So part of Candela Obscura's role is to try and just keep the people safe by making sure they don't really know about it. In terms of the power balance of Newfaire, there's something called the triumvirate, which are the sort of three pillars of power. And the ascendancy are like this organized religion that pretty much everyone practices. The primacy are the government led by a premier, and the periphery are the police force. And all of those three are generally quite bad, if you see what I mean, and quite oppressive and nasty. In particular, this is post the war, the periphery have been given loads of like wide-ranging powers that they needed to do because we're at war and lots are at stake. And they've been reluctant to give up any of those powers now that it's peaceful and they don't need to be just dragging people off the street anymore. We're going to do a short one-shot. It is an investigative game, so we will sort of teach the rules a little bit as we go along. We've got a dice roller set up. Normally, if you're following along and haven't looked at the rules before, it's the highest dice in a given roll that is what we count. And 6 is a full success, 4 to 5 is a mixed success or success with consequences, 1 to 3 is a failure. But we'll sort of talk through that as we get through from there. It's going to be just a short one-shot going through this adventure. Obviously, with a published adventure, I've not run this before, so we're thinking it'll be about 2 hours. It might be shorter, might be longer, but we'll try and keep the pace moving to do that. Because it's investigative, we'll probably smash cut between some scenes, and I'll be a little bit open about when you've got to the end of a particular session, if you see what I mean. If you found all the clues in the try and not give you an example from the actual adventure in the scene, we'll be pretty clear about that's it, and you don't need to carry on talking to the old woman because she's told you everything that she's going to do.
Right.
In terms of tone, it is a horror game. It's sort of horror, occult, a bit political as well. Generally, we won't always be serious as players. We'll have moments of levity and stuff, but we'd expect that our characters generally will. The characters we're playing will probably take it seriously. And obviously, with a horror game, it's really important we have some safety tools. We've got an X card. If you want to do an X card, just type it in the chat or do a little X with your hands if you want, and we'll stop and rewind and just make sure that any content that anyone's brought in that anyone's uncomfortable with is taken about. We talked about lines and veils earlier, and so we've got a list of things that are not going to be in the game or veiled out, but that doesn't mean we can't use the X card to do that. And if you're watching at home, if that happens, we'll probably cut that bit out. So you'll just get a little pause and then we'll talk about what we did there. But always recommend those with horror games, even if you're playing with a group of players like we are who generally know each other pretty well from that. So you are circled for the Candela Obscura, and you are assigned missions by your Lightbringer. It's worth knowing at this point there are 2 other sort of rival organizations that the Candela have. The Esoteric Order of New Sciences, or EONS, which are a handy acronym, who seek to like harness the opportunities of the new technologies and occult powers, and often dabble in dangerous areas that are sort of rivals to Candela Obscura. And they're prepared to cut corners for success and have not learned the lessons of Old Fair's collapse. And there's also the OUP, the Office of Unexplained Phenomena, who are the division of the periphery that deal with magical and occult crimes. So they're the police that will show up if something magical happens there. So we will start. This begins with a hook, which is like your little cut scene before, where you see the inciting incident take place. You as characters are not there. In its presentation, in the quick start, this is like a whole page of box text. So I'm not going to read that out. I'm going to cut it down quite a little bit just to get the scene, and then you'll start in that same scene a few hours later with your briefing from the Lightbringer. So we begin. Our curtains open at the Newfaire World Exhibition, where, as a mark of Newfaire's success and prosperity, a variety of new technologies and advances are being showcased. It's an exhibition of advancement. and it sits in the district of Briar Green. And there's row after row of inventions being showcased in this vast warehouse. There's an electromagnet elevator that will propel people up and down from there. There's radar technology to find your missing sheep. All kinds of inventions are on show here, row upon row of them, and all of it's got a bit of a festival atmosphere. There's crowds like making their way gradually from stall to stall, and there's the occasional sort of gasp in awe. And we sort of pan through this, past the X-ray machine, past the newfangled electric lights that are being developed, to a small stage where a woman stands on it. Beautiful. Vera Montgomery is her name. And she wears a glowing green dress. The dress itself seems to glow with some unearthly energy. And as she takes the stage, the whole warehouse is suffused in this green light. And beneath her, a sign purports what this invention is. The colour of the dress that she is wearing in the same glowing green, Undark. And we can just hear a voiceover next to her purporting this is a new colour that's been developed, the most fascinating colour that will be shown. You need no light but the one we provide. In our Undark, you are the light. And the crowd that are watching erupting cheers. There's a cacophony of their cheering, which almost drowns out. Takes you a moment as the viewer to hear the woman's screams as she begins to cry louder and louder and collapses on stage. All at once, gaping red sores open across her skin, crawling from beneath the dress in deep fissures of pain. And soon, all that we can see is her skeleton below the dress, glowing bright green, in a sort of echo of the X-ray machine a few rows back, who's hastily trying to distance himself and show that he's nothing to do with it. And soon, all that's left is a sort of puddle of glowing green flesh on this stage, and the crowds are quickly running away and dispersing. The party atmosphere is over, and we see attendants rush to usher people away and shut down the exhibition. Cut to a couple of hours later, where you have been summoned to this scene and tasked with investigating the mysterious death of Vera Montgomery, the model hired to exhibit clothing dyed with Undark. You are in the exhibition hall of Briarbank College, the four of you. You are surrounded by stall owners who are hastily packing up in a bit of a rush, because now the whole thing has, what was meant to be their showcase of their new technology has ended up being a bit of a tragic scene. And they're all desperately worried that they'll be tainted with this reputation. You know that you have only maybe half an hour at most before the periphery, or even worse, the OUP, will show up and want to clear this and want to scurry you away. So, first of all, you're in the scene. What's your immediate reaction to this? If we just give a bit of order to this, if you want to have a little scene where we introduce what your characters are looking like as you stand there, what's your first thoughts? And if we maybe go in the order we did before, so maybe start with Gaz, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So Cavendish is in the best of his threadbare seats. He had arrived, planned on arriving at the exhibition anyway, because he wanted to discuss the use of this gravitonic device. He's frequently thinking of what his next magic show will be, although he's not had one for years. He's got his battered notebook. He was going to use it to levitate down on stage. He got the whole thing planned, but now he sees that that's been packed away. So he's looking slightly irritated, and yet also interested in what's going on. So he's clutching this battered notebook with loads of bookmarks in it and stuff, and he's got inky fingers from the scribbling notes he's made of things as he walked through. But he's trying to sense what's happened. He kind of does the typical magician thing. So he's got like inky black spots on the side of his forehead because he keeps doing this sort of thing to kind of like feel the aura and get a sense for what's occurred here, if you can.
Okay, is that an actual power that you have to feel the aura, or is it just for show?
Let's have a think whether it is or not. because I've only got one thing that's actually power, so I don't want to. I don't want to go crazy. I don't want to play for 2 hours. I think no, he's trying to use his like deduction and stuff to work out if there's any clues or not. But he always presents it in such a manner that it's some kind of mystical thing he's doing just to keep the air of mystique. Okay,
so as you scan around, you can see where there may be some sources of clues in here. You can see that the hurriedly packing up stall owners are obviously, some of them may have been witnesses to this event, or even if there was a crowd. The X-ray machine is taking a while to pack up, so its proprietor is still, hastily dropping like test tubes and cathode ray things, and as he's doing. But he may have seen something. The remains of Miss Montgomery are still on the stage. This sort of glowing green pile of viscera, so there may be some clues there as well. And also there may be, obviously this is the thing, that there may be a way backstage for where other stuff was stored that might lead to some clues as to what happened, or where this Undark came from.
Cavendish will be heading over to speak to that proprietor of the X-ray machine, because he's known amongst his colleagues as someone who's quite charming and used to dealing with crowds and people and theatrics and stuff. So he's going to try and play his trade over there and just sort of like give the eye to everybody else, so that they know that's where he's covering off.
Excellent. Well, we'll cut back to that when you get there, as you approach this terrified stall owner. Shane, what's Albemarle up to?
So we see Albemarle. Unlike Cavendish, Albemarle is not in his best suit, but it's still far better. A well-to-do gentleman. He is certainly used to being at shows, but not used to being around piles of viscera, so looks a little queasy and uncertain. He's gripping his bowler hat in his 2 hands and nervously fingering it as he looks what happened. Being new to the Candela Obscura, this has become all too real for him, all too sudden. And looking around, trying to look anywhere but the viscera, he feels strangely drawn back to it. And keeps taking half a step towards and back, fidgeting around, remembering the thing that's made him different since childhood, the ability to open his senses and understand somehow, without knowing how, that something mystical, but slightly queasy about the idea. But eventually he steels himself, swallows uncertainly, and noting that one of my illumination keys is Act Bizarre, he begins to hum, which is his focus for his power. And against better judgment, Albemarle is going to attempt to extend his mystical senses to understand what happened here if he can.
Fantastic. And we see the beginnings of your vision fade. I like the fact we've got 2 player characters already pretending or actually doing weird occult read the aura things, but only one of them can actually do it. Ben, is Lachlan doing a similar attunement act, or what?
Goodness me, no.
What are you doing? Are you going to join with either of the other 2, or do a more general search?
I'm very used to these 2, that being the first thing they do whenever they march into a place embarrassing us like this. Lachlan appears on the scene. He's a tall, rangy-looking chap in his heavy, this world's version of tweed, which I think is just going to be a little bit more colourful and have gold and silver threads running through it, that kind of thing. Almost a tartan, dare I say. He's got leather patches on his elbows and knees. He wears canteens and such strapped across his body, as if he's ready to go for a long, invigorating hike, which he probably was about to do before that lady went to the trouble of melting on that stage. I'm going to stride forward, tapping my silver-topped cane on the floor as I go. Albemarle, you're looking a bit green round the gills there, but not as bad as she is. And I'm going to give the remains a bit of a prod with my stick.
Excellent. There's a satisfying sort of give to it as you do it, and it's almost like it reveals some more viscera there. We'll cut back to that. That sounds like you're aiding Albemarle in his role, if you see what I mean, in game mechanics terms.
Guessing I won't be needing this bleed detector, I'm thinking.
We'll see. Yeah, it is in fact bleeding, but that's not what bleed is in this world. Finally, Jag, what's Waldemar's plan?
Waldemar turns up a little bit later than everyone else, but that's mostly because he spent a good chunk of the time just trying to gauge the sense of hysteria, panic, or otherwise crowd reaction as people have been leaving the exhibition hall, gossiping about whatever's been going on. He's been milling around the stalls, just trying to overhear a little bit about what's been going on and what people have been kind of observing, noticed what has been particularly unusual about this particularly unusual incident. Feigns to know some of the people there, shakes their hands as if he's in the past made a dodgy deal with one or two of them, before finding a spot, retiring to an archway leading out of the exhibition hall, where from where he can kind of survey the scene and just observe who might be a little bit kind of cagey, ropey, shady, and the rest of it, and keeping an eye on his colleagues, who he's almost certain haven't noticed that he's arrived yet. He'll stay there for probably a good 10-15 minutes before he'll join them in the center of the hall around the stage.
Excellent. So as you snoop around, we'll cut back to you with how that investigation goes. So Cavendish, you're approaching the X-ray stall, and there's a shaking as he carries very fragile glassware and tries to wrap it in brown paper and put it back in his bag. Is a bespectacled, bald man. You notice his trousers and waistcoat are almost as threadbare as yours, and it wasn't you actually, was it? It was Lachlan. He could really do with some of Lachlan's elbow patches on the patches of his thick shirt, because they're almost worn through. As you approach, he just appears to make himself even busier, trying to avoid any sort of contact with anyone, and you can see that he's visibly quite shaking and a little bit afraid of you.
Okay, I'll go up and I'll sort of gingerly pick up one of the chest tubes and then almost drop it and then catch it again. I'm terribly sorry, O'Bean. These look fascinating. What's occurring here? Did you see what happened? There's the most disturbing green goo and viscera on the stage. It's quite unseemly. What happened, man? Tell me.
It was nothing. It was nothing to do with me. And he sort of grips you. Like, so nothing to do with me. It wasn't the. It looked like an X-ray, but it wasn't. This is all science. That was something. Please just give me that here. And he sort of takes the glass off you a little bit too forcefully and begins to pack away. Now, if you must, I really must. And he starts picking up this tottering thing, and you get the sense he really doesn't want to talk about what he's seen, unless perhaps you can sway him to befriend you.
Yeah, so there, old man. No, really, you just need to sit down. You can't go out in this state. It's terrible. And I almost pat his shoulder, but then pull back in that sort of reserved British way. But some sort of sign of affection I'm giving him regardless.
Lovely. So if you want to roll your sway, so just in terms of the system, if you want to add any extra dice, you can spend drive to give you additional dice.
Do you know what? I'm just going to roll my sway because I've got 2 dice in it, so I'm feeling bold. So I'm just going to roll 2 dice and see what happens. Getting a 5 as my best result.
Okay, fantastic. So your highest score is a 5, which means sort of success with complications. Should have said, sorry, just forgot that. In Candela Obscura, I choose what you roll, but I also sort of set the stakes of that, and that was a moderate. The standard is moderate, so if I forget again, it's moderate in terms of what you are. So he sort of freezes your hand on the shoulder, and gingerly puts the sort of towering cardboard box of glass down, and sort of sits on the chair that was behind and says, "Oh, you're right. I am rushing, and it is very valuable equipment. It all happened so quickly, you see." And he recounts the flashback scene that you saw before, in grim and grisly detail, lingering on the details of her collapse and glowing explosion. As he does so, you can see in the reflections of his spectacles, almost as if some bleed has affected him, this horrific scene, and hear the screams in your head as this happens, as he recounts it. But he says, he says it was so confusing afterwards. I'd never seen Miss Montgomery. That was her name. We'd met her before. She was an actress. The man who spoke there, we'd never seen him before, and he vanished pretty quickly afterwards. They must have they'll have something backstage though. All of our stuff was shipped in. It's all back in the green room. There might be a crate. They were labelled up, but you might be able to tell which one it is.
I'm sure there'll be some kind of registry or something. Yes, a good idea. Capital, fellow. Yeah, just capital.
It will be. Be careful. It was a terrifying scene. He just grabs your lapel briefly. The description that he's given you and the sort of flashback in the reflection is so terrifying. I'm going to actually ask you to mark a mark in brain.
Okay.
As you feel you still hear that scream.
Yeah, and it's kind of only afterwards when I go back I realised I'd written all the notes in detail in my book. I didn't remember writing them as he was saying it, but looking, I've got like 8 new pages of the notebook of this horrifying detail that I've scribbled down.
Really shaky writing. As it gets worse and worse as he's doing. Lovely. So while you're doing that, the viscera itself, Albemarle and Lachlan, you were poking around in that. So I think that this is going to be sense
or focus, I would argue.
Yeah. I'll let you pick which one it is. This is again moderate stakes. It sounded as if Lachlan was aiding you by poking it with his cane.
Yeah, that's my intent. It might not look like much in the way of aid, but I'm there to protect him. We've done this dance before.
So how that works is, Lachlan, you spend 1 drive in your intuition to give an extra dice to Albemarle.
Now, what if I had, for example, no drive in intuition?
That's an interesting rules question, isn't it? I think in this case, as you narrated a reasonable way to help by poking around in it, I might let you spend a drive in another nerve or cunning.
I think I'm trying to calm his nerves by showing him that I am not worried in the slightest and he's got nothing to be afraid of with this liquid. So I'll use one of my nerve drives to bolster his confidence.
And when the full game comes out, we can look back,
find out whether we were right or not,
if that ruling was correct or not. Shane, do you want to roll with an extra d6?
I will, and because my speciality as an occultist, when I extend my senses to roll with sense, I add number of dice equal to my current intuition resistance. So I'm rolling with a hefty 5 dice all in.
Wow.
And I have a critical.
You do, yeah, 2 6s. So the highest dice is 6, but more than 6. That is indeed critical.
That's the end of your 2-hour plan, isn't
it? Yeah.
Possibly my only good roll of the evening. So Albemarle's initially uncertain and his humming falters. That focuses him, but with Lachlan beside him acting so bluff and blasé, Albemarle's able to focus and extends his senses in anger for the first time in a Candela Obscura investigation.
Excellent. And you see, as the cane plunges into the viscera, you are flashed back to the same scene as has just been described and just been witnessed by Cavendish. This, though, you are fully in control of this, and you recognise it for what it is. This is a magical occult thing, and you can even tell from the moment before the death happens that the dress itself and was the source of bleed. It's radiating bleed, and the viscera that's there, even in this sort of pool of flesh, is still radiating massive bleed. And you can tell that whatever this was transported in will be lit up like a beacon to anyone who can tell any sort of magical phenomenon, and even people who can't. It's a very sort of, that's the source of the, so bleed can sort of warp the flesh and mind and stuff. It's sort of what went wrong with Oldfair, and this is very much an example of it. And knowing that makes it less terrifying for you. You've understood this for what it is. And yeah, you can even, I think with your critical, you even get visions of you see visions of Vera Montgomery earlier when she's trying on the dress, sort of weeks prior to this, of trying it on at fitting and then taking it off, and you see her just glance down at her hand, and you see briefly her skeleton is just outlined in glowing green for a moment, and then it vanishes, and then she just, as she approaches the stage, you see her just cough a little bit and look a little bit unwell, as if the effect of this dress has worn on her before, and visions of a place far from the city where this place may have come from, out in the hills.
Lachlan, your cane. Clean it quickly. This dress, it is cursed somehow. It is... wherever it has been, if we have some way to track the bleed, it will ring out like the bells of a cathedral. This is a terrifyingly powerful thing.
Okay. It doesn't look too terrifying from where I stand, but I'll take your counsel, sir. And with a handkerchief that I pulled from an inside pocket, I'll wipe the sticky residue from the end of my cane. Track it, you say? Can we find the beast? Can we track it to its lair and beard it?
Well, however this was shipped here, whatever route, it is beyond me to do so. We need a way to detect this bleed residue, which we have been taught.
Lovely. And yeah, it's your cane and handkerchief slightly sizzle and fizz as you wipe this off. You realise that was a good idea to get rid of it quickly. And finally, Waldemar, you were observing the scene, surveying the scene, seeing if there's anything suspicious or unusual about
anything,
had happened here. Do you want to make me I think it's survey, isn't it? Is the role for that?
Survey sounds good. So Waldemar has a thing to scout. If you have time to observe a location, he can spend a cunning to ask a question.
Yeah, do you want to trigger that rather than that'll avoid you having to roll any dice and potentially take any marks?
No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to exercise a different one. It's street smarts. Play all my chips at once. Whenever you make a survey roll, you may spend any drive instead of only using intuition. So I'll spend a drive of cunning to give myself an extra die.
Lovely. So make your roll, see what you can notice. This is, I'm going to say, I think this is probably low stakes, because there's not a huge amount of risk that you put yourself under because you're sort of keeping yourself to yourself.
Sounds good. Not even a partial success.
No, that is a failure. Good job. It was low stakes, I guess. So as you observe, very much everybody is leaving. And as you look around, you get the sense that an awful lot of these people may already have left. It's only actually when you went into the hall, there were lots of stalls there, but it was much more densely populated. Only the people who had like actual paraphernalia to pack away are still there. So anything that came, someone who was just talking through a dress appearance could have been long gone. If they'd left straight away, they could be well out of the city by now. And you note as well that Briarbank College, where you are, is a very short hop to one of the train stations, which will take you straight out of Newfaire. And whoever you are trailing, if someone made an escape after this, they could be hundreds of miles away by now. And I think that's a bit of a sense of dejection because you're outside and everyone else is inside finding lots of clues. So you don't know yet that they've actually found some clues to this. I think you're in your head, this is a wild goose chase. Whatever's happened is long gone here. And it feels like once again the Candela Obscura are being asked to do an impossible task. I am going to ask you to take a mark on brain as you feel the crushing inevitability of failure. Before we maybe cut to where you make your way in, do you want to have a quick scene with everybody there where you just share what you've learnt. You don't need to obviously verbatim repeat everything, but let's have a quick shot at saying what you have discovered.
Shall I start? I amble back in to meet up with everyone else, look around as everyone's kind of dispersing, and there's bits of prodding and things like that. Step over to the remains in the middle of the stage, look at each of my companions, and my face kind of sinks and says, well, where do we start? The show is pretty much over. He puts his hand down and realizes that he's soiled his fingers with some of the viscera, and realizes this and slimes it off, and he's kind of slightly beside himself as he tries to compose himself again, while someone else.
Wherever she changed, wherever she dressed, whoever brought this garment in, there must be traces. This is heavy with the bleed. A vile thing. We need to get backstage.
Oh, gentlemen, I see you've struck upon the same thoughts that I had. I've spoken to that man over... Oh, he's gone. There's a man over there anyway, and he was saying that things are packaged and recorded backstage. There may be some green room. Ironic, I say, looking down at the green sludge on the floor. But there must be some documentation backstage, some notes of where things have come in for. We'll find a shipping notice or something, I'm quite sure.
You have a beastly sense of humour, Cavendish, at a time like this.
Gallows humour is the thing that will get us through, don't worry. And I'll pat Voldemort on the shoulder and say, don't worry, Albine, it'll be fine. Be fine, perfectly good. It doesn't matter that they've left and gone already. We can hunt them down like dogs, I say.
I appreciate that, he says as he tries not to slime him on the back of his coat. Dusts off his own roughly filigreed jacket. It's badly buttoned.
Already moving, looking back over my shoulder. Gentlemen, come on, let's not dilly-dally. I check my pocket watch. Surely we can have this case closed in the next hour or so, and we can make it back to the pub for a fine meal.
Lachlan has the way. Quick, after the man.
Excellent. So as you make your way backstage, you can find the sort of a green room, and it is full of packing cases of various sizes. Clearly, just over half of these have been removed, but you also sense that enough people left in such a hurry that they didn't bother to take their transportation with them and maybe just rush to the station, clutching whatever of their display they could. So piled high, various different packing cases, some bigger than like a man, some just teetering, like small cardboard boxes piled up. Many have addresses, locations, companies on them, but you are faced with maybe 100 of them to sort through. What's your plan to locate the right one?
Well, I know a guy, so not just you guy, but my character knows a guy as well. So yeah, so my role as a face, I've got a temporary contact that you can give me that will be helpful here. So that I presume there was some kind of porter or a stage manager, or there'll be somebody here he must invoice this stuff in and out, or keep checks on it, or shift it about at least. So who've I got that could help me sort through it?
Oh, excellent. I think let's have a gentleman. You catch the eye of your contact, Wainwright. I think is maybe an elderly gentleman who's got like a cloakroom attendant type who's got, and you can just make out that he's got a huge pile of like tags that have been like booked in from people depositing there. So, and although this looks like a chaotic pile, Wainwright will know exactly where each one is, and he, as you sort of approach, he like nods in recognition. Says, "Hey up, Mr. Cavendish."
Oh, Wainwright, it's been simply ages since we've played whist. We must get back to it at some point. Look, you have all those tickets in your hands like a hand of cards.
He says, yes, you do, yes. I wish I knew the deck as well as I know these, Mr. Cavendish. But, even in this chaos, I've managed to bring some order.
Indeed. Whereas I'm reckless with my play, and you've won too much off me. Such as my threadbare suit I have to wear. given the amount of coins I've lost to you over the years. But you are very adaptable and you will know where things are, won't you, quite quickly. I mean, I couldn't press you, could I possibly? As a favour to a man whose money you've taken and food out of my mouth you've had and the clothes off my back virtually, could you perhaps do me a small favour to locate the carriage or the trunks and such that brought this marvellous dress in that's caused such a stir?
Says, "Oh, my heart truly bleeds for your ill luck, Cavendish. I only wish that our whist night can continue so I can witness it yet more." And he looks through. He says, "The dress that was delivered from quite some place away. You'll find it," as he sort of sorts through with his fingers. You'll find it in the northwest corner. I'm afraid that is one edge of the room that I am less confident that people kept in good order when they left in a hurry. But there should be only a few cases left up there. You may be able to locate something there." And he hands you a little slip that's just got like 27 on or something. Yeah. But he directs you to one corner of the room, which has narrowed your search down considerably.
Thank you. I mean, I'll do my usual trick where I give him there's a pound note, but it's on a bit of fishing wire. So I pretend to hand it over the tip and then whip it away at the last minute, as always happens for our little jape that we have between us.
Is it? Oh, you never get any funnier, Mr. Cavendish.
Well, once reached the peak, there's nowhere else to go, is there? And I'll also wave this ticket at my companions and point in the northeast direction.
Okay, and you can indeed see there's a few cases still left in this corner of the room. So has somebody else got a plan to locate which one it is?
Lachlan, did you bring that fancy device of yours?
I certainly did. Never leave home without it, as you know. And I'll go patting around my belt, looking inside my jacket and all of the various pockets. I have exactly this for just this kind of circumstance. I'm going to produce my bleed detector.
It's an excellent chance to just point out the gear rules, which we know, but let's just explain them for the audience. You can pick up to 3 items of gear during the adventure, so you don't have to select them ahead of time. You can just choose, I'll have that one and have it. And as we've encountered a bleed detector, Ben, I'm going to ask you, because it's yours, what does your bleed detector look like and how does it detect bleed?
That's a really good question, and I'm glad you've asked it. Okay, let's say that it's made of a combination of brass and a sort of a dark exotic wood. In our world, that might be walnut or teak or something like that, but it's probably something from... Is there a scarlet forest, I think, in this setting, isn't there? So perhaps it's a reddish-coloured wood, which goes in with the whole bleed detector thing as well. And it's boxy and looks a bit like one of those old-fashioned cameras that we would have had in our Victorian age, the sort of bellows camera. And that is exactly what it does. You look in through a viewfinder at one end, and you put like photographic plates in there, and then you remove the cap, and then pop it back on, pull out the plate, and if there's any bleed to be had, it will come up in a kind of a glowing pattern across the photo plate.
Excellent. And indeed it can, as you put the plates in one of the cases. Worryingly, there are quite a few cases left in this place that radiate a little bit of bleed, such is the nature of the exhibition. But there's one that really does shine like a beacon in there. And you can see, as you get to it, you can see it's a packing case. It's full of sort of packing papers, sort of fine tissue paper, in which the dress was probably packed. And there may be maybe a packing note in here somewhere, if someone wants to sort through that and dive into it. But Lachlan, it's obvious to you this whole thing is spilling out bleed.
Okay, all right. I'll draw everyone else's attention to it as well. Take care. I think we may have found a hot spot. My equipment suggests that we investigate further.
Well, Valdemar's already covered himself in the stuff, so we're no harm to him to read through it or something like that. Not that I'm suggesting you should. I'm just saying that it would be a possibility.
Indeed, Voldemar, what do you make of this?
Voldemort's already started to scan and peruse across the piles of papers, the boxes of cases, and really kind of just looking without touching, and then every so often lifts a sheet, a leaf, a cloth, some canvas, whatever it might be that's kind of in the way. And this time he does indeed takes his time to really observe what's there and what's maybe a little bit further afield come from. And what do I notice here that others do not see? He spends his cunning to scout.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's good. I was going to make you roll a skill roll and potentially get some bleed marks from there, but I think that's a good way to avoid that using that power. Yeah, as you look at it, there's actually, as you sort of peer in and think, yeah, there's probably is a delivery note in here somewhere, but as you look around at the way the case is constructed, it's the kind of case you've seen these before and maybe pilfered them before, and they often have return notes stamped on them from places of manufacture or places of dispatch. It looks like a sort of factory made, as if it's not been purchased specially for this, as if it's been made by the people who shipped it as well. And you can find on one side there's a little imprint, and you get, and there's a little maker's plate that gives the location that this has travelled from. The imprint is one of the Radiance Corporation, and you, as you do this, you know that they're based in Mordant Springs, in Bridalbourne, which is a place sort of almost a day's journey away by train, is where this has been shipped in. But this is the source of the dress.
I pull this out and show it to my companions and say, well, I think what we have known about this dress, it's a custom bespoke item, and not the sort of thing that, if it's containing the levels of bleed that we suspect, is going to really fare well in standard packaging. Someone's clearly made something special to contain it, and this is a very delicately constructed container here, which I would suggest maybe has a similar bleed signature as the dress, and is only a day's ride away. Bridalbourne, Mordant Springs, the Radiant Corporation. That could be a place to explore. I don't know how that compares with the tales of From the Hills that we've had before.
And at this revelation, you hear the blast of a whistle. And those of you that have not been inspecting it can turn around and see the strong moustache and policeman's helmet of Sergeant Parkinson, who you will recognise as one of the OUP's agents here. Is that all right? All right, we'll have no looters here. We know you don't look like exhibitors. So when he comes up with a couple of equally angry-looking members of the periphery, it says, poking around in the discarded remnants. I bet you're looking for something nice here, aren't you?
So I'm going to use my sleight of hand to quickly change my note that's got 27 on it and change it to a 28. And go, oh, look, we found the box first. Like, lot 28 is ours to investigate. It's nothing to do with you lot. So I'm going to try and convince them that it's a different thing just a way off, that they should be taken care of and not what we're looking at.
Excellent, good. So as you said, sleight of hand, which is hide, actually.
Yeah.
Sleight of hand to do that. If you want, you can spend stress on that, or anyone can help you if they want to reinforce this. As he peers over, surprised that you might have anything legal to do with this, he says, "You don't look like. Well, one of you looks like a thief. The rest of you don't particularly."
I lift my hat. It's quite a flowery affair, really odd looking on a weazened looking man like me, perhaps, and leave it to the side, just in place for Cavendish to be able to drop anything that he might want to secrete away, and in a deft move can swoop it back up and tuck it under my on top of my head, under my head.
You paint a lovely picture of that action. So spend a drive to give Cavendish an extra dice for that, and Gaz, make the roll, and we'll see how this goes.
Sure, yeah. I'll spend a point in my drive as well, just to give us a rather good chance. Blimey. Mixed success is the best I can do.
So yeah, mixed success. He looks at that. He says, "What are you playing?" I think you might do the convincing, but he says he gets the 28. He says, "Your lot, who sold you this? Look, this isn't regular at all. I tell you what, we'll not arrest you here now, but you clearly know something about this. And as you might know, there's a murder investigation in there. Some poor woman's died, so you'd better all come down to the station with me and my boys and have a nice chat about it."
There's been a murder? Oh, that's terrible.
I've seen nobody.
Well, yes, it's a serious investigation, but we happen to be here.
Is that if there is no body, surely, Sergeant, that is a missing persons, and you should be elsewhere, not here, trying to find them.
Yes, you found us. We're not missing.
He says, "You see, since he takes a little bit more convincing from this, do you want to try and sway him, Albemarle?
It's literally the thing I'm worst at, so let's have a go.
Or amend your thing to give a different role if you want to put some spin on it.
What I'm looking for is I'm more about kind of distracting him.
Okay.
In order to give at least a couple of the others a chance to wander off, which should separate the periphery and make it easier for us to escape en masse.
Fantastic. Yeah, I like that. So I'm going to say this is high stakes because this is sort of as a result of a complication roll from before. So it's potential. I think sort of the stakes are that you will purport something to escape, but it's possible that you'll have to make quite a heavy escape, which might be a mark in body as you're sort of exhausted, rushing away, and it might be a mark in body for all of you. That makes sense, but it's successful. You all get there. If anyone wants to narrate anything to support, should say as well, just in the rules, you can spend more than one drive in a roll as well. You can give yourself more than an extra d6 if you want. You've got the option to stack the dice.
Well, I shall spend one of my cunning drives to double my hide.
Oh, yep. Nice.
And I shall get a 6.
Nice.
Fantastic. Do you want? I might hand that over to you. How does this distraction work that enables everybody to slip away? Do you want to just take the scene a little bit?
So clearly, I step in front of the sergeant and I'm talking to him directly, and pointing at where the viscera is and there's no body, waving my arms around. Well, Sergeant, clearly you are wasting a great deal of time here. When I dine with the inspector next, clearly I am going to be telling him that if there is a woman missing, believed dead, you should not be here harassing innocent people. And I'm just going to start pacing around, absolutely ranting about the fact that this wouldn't have happened when my grandfather served in the periphery and all that kind of stuff, and loudly, really annoyingly, so that the others can sneak away without the periphery noticing. And in the end, they decide rather than continue my rant down at the station, they effectively just threaten me and order me away.
Yeah, I think that, and we'll add to it that maybe some actual looters show up as well, drawn by all the arguments that are happening, and they actually have to deal with the crime that they're meant to be doing it. So you're able to escape the crime scene that you've been investigating, and you have your lead to get to Mordant Springs. So it's about a day's travel on the train. So is there anything that you want to do before you set off to that location? It doesn't have to be, but
I'll just bring a picnic basket as usual.
I have a small personal collection of arcane texts, which I will pack into a nice travelling valise to bring with me.
Yeah, I'm just going to be researching like the company logos and things like that we've noted where we're, because I may want to forge something at some point, so I'm kind of like getting stylistic things set up so that I can do something on the fly if I need to.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing that, you might actually find out something about the Radiance Corporation. If you wanted to make it's going to be low stakes. You're not going to get any. There's not a lot that can go wrong with this. This is I've nearly called it a gather information role, but that's in another game, isn't it? But we do it. So I think that's probably focus. to do some research on that?
Okay, I can give it a go, certainly.
Yeah.
No, nothing.
No, they are. I mean, they are clearly an up and coming corporation.
Yeah.
They are not known. Maybe this was going to be their big break when they revealed Undark to people.
So I'm wondering if there's been anybody that Valdemar knows who has heard of how an up and coming organization like Radiant Corp has managed to secure quite a prestigious slot at the exhibition hall. Maybe there's some wheeling, dealing, backhanding going on that's allowed them to infiltrate polite society in this way.
You could do some asking around. That'll be sway. Sway is what you use to consort. So it gives us, again, it's low stakes. There's not really a negative consequence to this. It's just you might find some stuff out, you might not.
He is talking to the wrong people.
Likewise. There's nothing for it but to get the train and see for yourselves, I think. So you will pile onto the train to deep into the Bridleborn Mountains, and we see that little Indiana Jones style red like path go as you go deep into the site of the Radiance Corporation. And that's probably a good point for us to take a quick break. So we'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, welcome back. We left our heroes on the train to Mordant Springs, investigating the strange death of Vera Montgomery with a dress that appeared to have killed her. It radiates bleed and is clearly a terrible occult thing. And the manufacturing place of it, or certainly where it was shipped, is this town, Mordant Springs. So we begin by seeing the train pull into the station. This is not quite the end of the line, but it is deep into the hills. And as you step off the path, you can see Mordant Springs is a company town. There's a few mines that you can just see nestled up in the hills outside the town. But immediately in front of you, there's a town general store that seems to sit right in the middle of this village. You can see at the edge of the town, there's a factory where manufacturing seems to be taking place. You can see it puff out steam into the otherwise beautiful pastoral air. And probably gathers the attention of Waldemar. We've established you as one of you're always surveying and looking around the place. You notice there's a sort of simple little sign as you step off the platform that has something written on it, but it's been sort of scribbled out in paint as if someone's tried to deface that sign. And as you peer at it, you can see that it originally directed you to some hot springs. It being a town out in the country, of course, there's a tavern as well. The Pick and Shovel is there, but both the general store and the tavern don't seem to be seeing much custom at the moment. You can see there are people shuffling around. It's probably looking at sort of probably from best part of a day. So we'll say you've got maybe the overnight train and you've arrived sort of mid-morning in Mordant Springs, and you can see miners sort of shuffling around, factory workers on the way, but the streets are fairly empty. You get the impression that most people of employable age are out working at this time. So you've got a few things to investigate here. What I'd leave it up to you, sort of what your plans are, but I might steer you in a suggestion that you've got a few places to go to. You might want to split up into 2 groups of 2, if you really want to do like 4 groups of 1, if you want to just scatter. But investigative games, it's often good to split up and cover more ground. So feel free to decide that amongst yourselves. Now I'll start you off though, because we're online and it's a bit awkward. So Ben, what's Lachlan thinking of doing first? And maybe he can take somebody with him or go it alone.
Cavendish, do you remember? I think we may have been here before. I think we were invited to a party by one of our old college chums, and it was a heavy drinking night, if I recall. But I'm starting to get a sense that maybe we've been in this town before. The name of that tavern rings a bell. What do you say? Should we go and see if there's anyone there who hopefully we weren't barred? I mean, it could have happened, couldn't it? But should we go and check that out?
Do you know, I think we're here with Tubby Perkins, you know.
Of course. It was Tubby, wasn't it?
Yes.
I wonder whatever happened to him. I think he was devoured.
Well, I don't know. I mean, but we should definitely go and have a drink in his honour anyway. You're quite right.
All right. Well, let's it's been a long day, hasn't it? The sleeper train to Mordant. Oh dear, don't fancy that anymore. Let's go and stretch your limbs and get a little livener in before we head up into the mines. Can we catch you two fellas later on, perhaps?
Wow.
Yeah.
Very well.
Never a wasted
something for
moment
you.
in Candela Obscura's investigations as Cavendish and Waldemar immediately decide to go for a stiff drink on the arrival in this town. What's Waldemar thinking of doing? And maybe Albemarle might come with him.
Yeah, so Waldemar was thinking of getting something to eat somewhere and maybe explore a little bit further afield, see whether there's it's lunchtime, right? It's we've been on the sleeper train and train fare is not as good as it ought to be. It's certainly gone downhill over the last few years. We'll probably look at whether there's something where the mine workers eat. The factory workers kind of pick up a bite there and thereabouts, and just get a sense of what kinds of things have been going through, what they've been up to, what they've been making, and what the fortunes or misfortunes of Mordant Springs have been since the Radiant Corp have started to rise. What do you say?
Well,
Waldemar?
I don't know why, but an intuition draws me to those hot springs. A place like this, they would be quite the draw. And I have no reason for this, bar a darkness preying on the edge of my mind, that those hot springs have been repurposed for something more sinister. And perhaps these workers will be able to clue us into that.
Perhaps we can gather some kind of a picnic to have by the hot springs via the workers. Maybe they've got a stall to get some provisions that we can lay out on a checkered cloth.
Be wary though. Company town like this, well, they'll make the periphery look kind if they have something to hide.
Well, I'm glad you're here to be able to see beyond the veil of.
Well, let us gather this food.
Yeah, you get the sense that probably the one sort of shop you can get that maybe serves some sandwiches and that the miners can take there would be the general store. That's got a little. You see some people taking out little brown paper bags of provisions and whatever Mordant Springs pasties they'd have out of there to take down the mines. So that's probably the place for you guys to go. But the pick and shovel is just opening, I think, as you step in, and you can see behind the bar there's a thin man of sort of late middle age. You sense that maybe he's a little bit old to be working in the factory or down the mines, and maybe this is what he's retired to. He sort of glances up as he's cleaning his glasses and looks a little bit surprised to see outsiders here. Says, well met, strangers. It's a little early, but we are open. Indeed. What can I get for you?
Why? 2 glasses of stout and a pickled egg. If you
Same.
please.
Says, right, yeah. Of course, yes. And he does that, and there's an enormous jar of pickled eggs on the bar that he reaches in with his greasy hand and pulls out onto a saucer and gets a little paper serviette with you and does that and says, you'll be wanting to check in with the factory if you're here company men.
Absolutely right. Yes.
And meet Mr. Wallace. He'll be the gentleman. He doesn't take too kindly. You might want to. I don't want to put them out, but maybe finish the stouts and let it settle a little before you meet him. He's quite a puritanical fellow about things like that.
Is he indeed? Well, on our dockets, we had someone else running the factory. We're from the inspectors, from the head office. Wallace been here long?
you'd have to talk to him about that. There's not. I wouldn't know anything about that. I'd better just go change the barrel on this side. Actually, I'll not take any more of your gentleman's time. See, he swiftly seems to want.
No. Let's not be like that. It's not just an inspection of the factory, of course. It's with the whole facilities. Well, we want to make sure that this pig and shovel's up to scratch. If we don't find that this public house is suitable for our gainful employees, then why? There might have to be repossession. Oh, I don't know what a man of your age would do. Perhaps down their mines, I imagine, but oh gosh, perish the thought. It'd be much better if you showed us some suitable hospitality and the correct working, giving attitude. That's what we're looking for, isn't it? Isn't that right, Mr. Lachlan?
Eh? Well, I'm holding up my glass of stout to the light and sort of peering into it. Yeah, I think changing the barrel is probably a good idea, and I wouldn't dare say there's a little bit of grime on the edge of this glass too.
Oh, there's
I'm
not sediment in it.
at all, Cavendish, that we're getting the correct welcome that we were hoping for. I think I'll note that on page 1A, section BC of our inspection docket.
I'll kind of lean into them and go, believe me, you're best off getting on a good side now. I'd let you off, but him, oh my God.
I would love to just let this keep going for about 20 minutes. And just wait as this.
Talking in parts for hours is something we have very little experience of, so it's probably best to gloss over this.
At some point, there's going to be a dice roll to see if you can fall. Well, if he falls for your very convincing, I'm convinced, act as inspectors, despite your somewhat threadbare clothing that you're wearing for this. I think it's probably sway. Although you can make a case for hide as well, as that's distract. Do you want to work out between yourself who's leading and who's assisting?
Cavendish is leading absolutely all day long.
And I'm equally comfortable with sway or hide, so it makes no difference to me. So, do I get like an extra die because I'm being helped by Lachlan, or do we have to spend something to make that happen?
You do if Lachlan spends a drive point.
And I'll drop in one of my drive points from cunning, which should fit for either of the rolls you fancy making there.
Lovely. I'll spend one myself. So you enjoy doing it, and we're friends together. Why wouldn't I? So 4 dice. Got a 6.
And a 6. That's it. And his shocked expression as he stops still. You think it might be the accusation of sediment in his glass, but it's not. As he says, "No, but please don't send me down the mines."
What? Wait, I mean, we wouldn't. It's head office, you understand. We're on your side.
Oh, John, if Mr. Wallace found out about this, but there are. Please do it. The men are getting sick. There's something in there in the North Mine. They try and do the best. I do my best to look after them. You must have got the wrong batch of glasses there. Sir, I will change the barrel forthwith. We have tried to care for them. We take herbs from the herbalist at the hot springs and try to treat them, but sadly not all of them make it. Terrible coughs, and you see them in the night. The hands glowing green. You can see the bones through them. There's something not right. There's something not right. You mustn't tell Mr. Wallace I told you.
Actually spit my mouthful of stout back into the glass. I hope it isn't the sediment in this rather noxious ale you've decided to serve up. Well, thank you for your candour at least. This is a bit more getting off on the right foot, I think we call it back in head office, don't we, Cavendish?
We do, Mr. Lachlan, indeed. And people green around the gills. That's not what we want to see, is it?
No, absolutely.
Let alone green around the hands.
It's a health and safety matter now, and it doesn't get any more serious than that.
When I pull out my battered journal and start writing things down in it. Don't worry, we'll keep your name out of it. Who's someone else who you don't like? We'll use him.
He says, "Oh no, I couldn't possibly. The whole town is getting sick. At the general store, young Yale has been really poorly. We tried to treat her, but not. We've had to lock her in the room above there. Seems to be delirious."
Yale, did you say?
Yale, yes.
Yale lock. Got it.
Poor Kiko. Her wife is beside herself.
Well, don't you worry. We've got people on it for this sort of thing. We'll sort all this out. You make sure you clean your glasses, clean up the barrels, and we'll have all this sorted forthwith. Nothing for you to worry about. Just pack us up some of those eggs, and a bottle of those brown ale we'll take with us as well. And are they sandwiches? Yes, I'll want 2 of those. And I'll basically get him to give us some stuff for free, so to keep.
He does, yeah. You get a big hamper of stuff that he's put together. And with that, while this is going on, let's cut to the general store. You were getting some provisions. You do actually meet. You do meet Kiko, who is the general store owner, who looks quite. All the prices in the general store look sort of cut price and cheap, as if they're trying to sell things off quickly. And the Kiko, the shop owner, she seems just a bit distracted. You notice her coughing a couple of times as she tries to sell you your sandwiches. Do you pursue this, or do you want to cut to the hot springs, given we've got our leads to the general store already?
Madam, are you unwell?
So just a fever. I'm fine, really.
And is it widespread thing here? Do I need fear my health?
He says, "Oh no, you should be fine. What brings you to Mordant Springs anyway?"
I'm an artist of sorts, and I am seeking paints of unusual colours. I am told this might be the place. I saw this fascinating dress, you see.
There's a look of fear in her eyes, as if she maybe recognises something that she might be able to put 2 and 2 together with. But she says, "Oh no, I wouldn't know anything about that," and looks to the floor. Unless maybe you can be a bit more convincing that and sway her.
If only I could. I will look to Voldemar for support here.
Yeah, so I'm the business partner on this, but he's shuffling around trying to adjust his breeches. He says, "I'm terribly sorry. We've been on a very, very long train journey, and I was just wondering if I could use your conveniences. I know this is a general store. Maybe you have some general conveniences that perhaps I could take advantage of, and then I'm sure my companion here will be able to elaborate further on the artistic provisions that he requires. But I could try and distract her a little bit, maybe a little bit, make her a bit more blustered. If she's distracted by something already, maybe get her to direct me in one particular way to where there may be something else to find out, and leave an opening for Albemarle to."
Excellent. You can certainly distract her, as she is completely put at ease, and there are some conveniences you can use. Certainly, she's very careful to keep you on the ground floor of it, but that will be enough to aid, if you spend that drive, the sway to sort of convince you that you maybe are just innocents that are here to help.
Is there a way to sneak out maybe as I'm going out the back to the conveniences? There's somewhere to check out further parts of the premises.
Yeah, instead of helping Albemarle, you could certainly make a hide roll to try and check out the rest of the premises. That would be completely reasonable. Should we do both of those rolls at once and then sort of interpret them? Shane and Jag, if you want to roll your sway and
sure,
your hide, and then we'll work out how that works.
I'm going to blow my remaining true cunning drives to give me 2 dice, because I am not the social character. Oh my gosh.
Well worth spending them.
I am going to use a resistance, please, Master Games.
Yeah.
Clearly, I'm going to re-roll both of those dice.
Twice as good.
For those who can't see, 2 1s replaced by 2 2s.
Yes, lovely. Lovely. So yeah, well worth blowing that resistance on there. I think at that point, in terms of the 2 rolls, I should have set the stakes before. I think probably, Shane, luckily yours is probably a fairly low stakes roll. There's not a lot of harm that can come from you apart from her sort of checking you out of the shop. Jag, yours was more high stakes because obviously if she catches you, that would be more dangerous. Let's do.
Well, that would be doing something illegal, no doubt.
Yeah, in fact, yeah.
Which is quite the slinky thing.
So Albemarle, she says no, nothing. It is, as I said, a fever. Now, artistic provisions aren't something we carry much of, and I wouldn't know about any funny paints or anything. If you've got business painting here, you should speak to Mr. Wallace at the factory. I'm sure he'll want to know about it. I'm sure he'll be very helpful. But now I'm very busy, she says, in this empty shop, and sort of clams up against you. Meanwhile, you, on your way to the conveniences, notice that there is a sort of bead curtain and some stairs leading up. And presuming that you slyly peel that away and tiptoe upstairs, you find that there are sort of 2 bedrooms, which are obviously where the general store proprietors work. One of them, though, is, you check and it is locked, and worryingly you can hear noises from within of laboured breathing and something apparently in pain, and occasional sort of what feel like bangs and coughs from there, as if something maybe not fully. It's almost on the edge of being a very sort of ill person, but very active person is in there. But it is a bit disturbing as you go to the door. The door is locked from sort of the outside. The key is still in it.
A key in the door has never been a problem for me in the past.
Sorry, the key's on your side. It's been locked from the outside, and the key left in it.
Oh.
Whatever's in there has been locked in.
That makes it even easier. I don't even need to pull out any burglary equipment. I can peer behind me, make sure that there's nobody coming. I can still hear the voices of Albemarle and Kiko exchanging words below. There's the sound of stuff going on outside I can hear, and I think I can just about turn the key slowly, make it click, and as I do, I'll edge the door slightly open, trying to make it not creak, as carefully sort of see whether or not there's anything that smells as it comes out, and just wide enough to see if I can look in without exposing myself, and then if it's okay, just to get a sense of what is making that horrendous dying noise behind.
As you creak the door open, you feel a hand grab the handle from the other side, and as that hand pulls it open, another one reaches towards you and grabs you to pull you in. Can you make me a move roll? And what we'll do is we'll roll this, then we'll cut, and then we'll cut back to you and resolve what the consequences of it are. This is high stakes, by the way, in case that wasn't clear.
Yeah, I'm going to spend a nerve drive to give myself an extra die on this to avoid the die. It's a partial success.
Okay. So you managed to avoid being pulled into the room, but you do see a sort of green hand is what grabbed you, and from within there's a humanoid shape, glowing green with red blotches on it. You think you can maybe see the skeleton from inside it. Reaches out. This hand just batters across you. I'm going to ask you to mark body. But you are, with that, because you did roll successfully, you do manage to sort of slam the door shut and get it away, and quickly lock it while you do that. As that happens, I said we'd resolve it later, didn't we? I just got carried away because you rolled a partial success, and so that's the best one, isn't it? And as that happens, Albemarle, you hear there's a sort of screech. Yeah, the person inside, the green person, lets out a sort of screech from upstairs, and Albemarle, you hear this bang, and sort of there's a bit of a scuffling as you're leaving the shop, and you hear the shopkeeper go, "Yale, no, calm down," and sort of make to rush upstairs. It's okay, I'm coming, dear.
I'm going to pull the key out of the door before I duck into the other. Well, if I can get downstairs past the curtain, I'm going to try and do that to not be there, if that's possible. If not, I'll duck into the other room and jump out the window.
Excellent. Yeah. So you're trying to just escape the scene, if that makes sense.
I think we'll
do another move roll for that. That seems to be the way to do that.
That's a partial success as well.
Excellent. So yeah, you're able to take the key. In fact, I'm not sure. Are you? Yeah, I'm not going to give you a body mark. I'm going to you take the key, and you see the shape of the shopkeeper coming up from there, and are able to sort of barrel out of a window and race down the top of a roof and sort of swing down and do it. As you check yourself when you sort of emerge and maybe pad round to meet the rest of your circle, somewhere in that escape, the key is no longer with you. In fact, I'll give you the choice. You can either still have the key, but you'll have cut yourself on the way down on a bit of gutter or something, so take a body mark, or you've lost the key.
I'll take the body mark.
Okay, yeah. You still have the key, and you're able to. This is probably at the same point everyone emerges in the sort of town square, and you can share what you've discovered so far.
It was disgusting. I could see through it, and it was a hideous green and red combination. Absolutely would not see that in Newfaire in any season, and this was visceral and guttural, and it had all the hallmarks of what we saw at the exhibition hall.
So I presume that's like a sort of slight, just to move the scene back a little bit, it's the sort of me and Lachlan there sharing a cheese and pickle sandwich and an egg, and we're watching him rush out of the window. So things are going as normal then, as he scrapes himself on the gutter, gets his pants caught on some of the railings on the way past, and then just comes running over and blurts all that out straight at us. Oh, right, very good.
As you finish the pint, take the glasses back, mop your and then step outside. Yeah.
This sounds terrible, Valdemar. There's some kind of beast, you say, locked away in that poor shop.
There is a ghastly greenish colour that is absolutely reminiscent of what was described about the dress and such. And this seems to be a hallmark of Undark. I think we're in the right place. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely sure. Well, we found that in the North Mines, they're digging this stuff out of the ground, perhaps, or the source of it. The miners are becoming green and ill all over. It's not just one. Soon the whole village will be a village of the damned if we're not careful. There's some Mr. Wallace that runs the place. He's behind all this, I suspect.
We were given that name also, and the shopkeeper knows more than she is letting on.
Well, perhaps the shopkeeper's trying to protect her wife or a loved one and not facing reality just yet, but nevertheless, we need to stem the tide of what's happening and stop it happening to anyone else, don't we, first?
There are questions I suspect only this Wallace can answer.
Well, let's put the question to the man then. See what he has to say for himself and his vile, corruptive stuff. I've no doubt money's at the root of all this, probably. They'll dig anything out of the hills and despoil the countryside. I've seen it all over the land. But this stuff seems to be fouling up our very air around us. Poor Yale. Maybe we can get her back to a doctor in Newfaire at some point, but we need to put a stop to this at its source.
Quite right. If anyone asks, we're inspectors from headquarters.
Oh yes, there's that as well.
You had a strong sense about the hot springs.
Very much so. I think we should start marching off in that direction right away before yon barkeep gets a message to the Wallace and he makes a run for it, knowing that we're on his tail.
Or worse, this being a company town, comes for us with the local muscle.
I'm not afraid of those. I say cracking my knuckles.
Yeah, and there's almost, I think we have a little cut scene there where there's some miners or even some mine supervisors. We see them going into the tavern, and there's just a cut scene of you wouldn't guess who I've just had in here. Like, immediately after swearing to secrecy. I know, inspectors. Tried to say my glass was grimy. So okay, we'll sort of smash cut to the hot springs as you make your way there, and you find the herbalist that works there. These were, you can tell, once probably quite a popular place for the miners to go to relax, but you can see there's only a couple of bathing areas available now, and you certainly don't see anyone using them at all. Olu, the proprietor of it, greets you, and is a little curious at first to check that you're not from the factory, but truth be told, he's so desperate, he's glad to see outsiders, assuming you don't go in your cover identity of factory inspectors.
I've just fallen out of a window and I've got a bit of battery and bruising, so I'm happy to kind of inquire of him whether there is anything that he can give me to supplicate my bodily ailments.
He says, "Oh yes, we have healing salves for that. If only we could find healing salves for what ails the village. A natural clay," he says, as he sort of we have this scene as you're all sort of gathering round, sipping tea that he's brewed for you, and there's Waldemar maybe with your shirt rolled down and this wound as he's slapping this clay onto it. Stings a bit, but it does seem to be helping a bit. Not in game mechanics terms. There's not anything like that. There's no way of getting rid of marks.
Narratively,
but it feels better. Yeah. He says, it's the clay in this mountains there's great health-giving properties. These mines could be a real source for good. There's nothing ill here at all. It's strange how all the more shame how the sickness can come, and how, alas, I cannot treat it.
And what could they be doing in the North Mines that would bring such a pestilence?
He says, I know not what happens in the mines. The miners that work there are insensible by the time I come to treat them. But there's a strange green liquid they harvest. Maybe there's a spring deep in there that they can cut it wrong. But that's the thing. They all talk of it when they come to me ill. Soon become insensible, have to be tied down lest they attack people, become violent. At first, the green was entrancing, a thing of beauty. But it's hard to see beauty when someone's skeleton is glowing green through their skin and they're trying to kill you. The North Mine is where they're fine. You'll get no truck from Wallace. Well, we've not had any inspectors here. You know what it's like. Those with the money can get their own way. It's got the support of the periphery, and it doesn't come much out here anyway.
No, I hear there are some inspectors on the way. I won't be surprised if we do get some, but we should take your advice.
I've heard rumours. My informers will know down at the Pick and Shovel, I'm sure. And they're all saying, "Oh, we should tell Olu about that. He'll want to know. He's always that old weird one at the Springs. He'll want to know about that." Yeah.
Yeah. So if you tell the inspectors are all old army men, they're definitely not people to mess with.
He says, but it is truly a doom to the village. The North Mines where you'll find it. I can show you the best routes to it. It is guarded, but you may find the answers there to what is happening.
Don't worry, we'll sort all this out for you. You've been especially kind with your sanctifying clay and marvellous tea. It's the least we can do to travel up there and see if we can't do something to help out. We are, of course, travelling doctors and physicians and scientists who have come here specifically to resolve any issues like that. And I'll give him one of my many fake business cards to the same effect.
So, all right, very good, very good. Yes, well, good. Grace, he sketches you out a brief map to the North Mine, so you know which one it is to go there. That avoids the route that they take stuff down to the factory, and so you don't have to see those patrols there, able to sneak around and do it.
Whilst this conversation is happening, I'd like to consult my arcane tomes from within my valise to see if there is anything to do with sort of green liquids or sort of earthly manifestations of bleed, such as that.
Yeah, so I think that could be focus or it could be sense. Sense has the slightly weird descriptor reveal, which could be anything. Do you want to make a roll to see if we can find this? Sure. Low stakes. I can't see there being too much at risk here.
Yeah,
but you might find a few things out from there.
A 5.
Yeah, so success with consequences. There's no. So what that tells you is there's no sort of. There's no records of green liquids being mined, if you see what I mean. There's very little stuff about like springs deep in the earth. You can get materials that effuse bleed, but they're not generally in quantities that can be mined. And there's certainly not streams of them like flowing underground. Sort of magic doesn't seem to work like that. You just can't find big chunks of it. There's occasional things that get suffused with it as a result of alchemical mixings and things. But it doesn't just grow in mountains, or hasn't before. You don't just get cursed mountains that churn out bleed magical rock or liquid or anything. So the idea they've struck some sort of spring that this green liquid is in seems very unlikely to you.
And as we're en route, I'll relay this with the comment that there must be something they are doing down there. So we must be careful, as we do not know what apparatus or weaponry they will have.
Excellent. And we will cut to the mine entrance. It's a large hole bored crudely into the side of the mountain. Passage held up by large wooden beams and illuminated by flickering oil lamps. You can sort of see within. There is a bit of sort of traffic here. There are miners coming and going, but you pick the time when there's nobody that lets you around to let you get entrance into it and to begin to go deeper into the mine. But as you make your way further through it, this is quite a wide shaft you're in here, as if it sees quite a lot of traffic and movement to and fro. You're sort of stealthily moving forwards when suddenly you see a man in sort of full body protective gear, like face mask, all sort of rubber suit on here. He's got a rifle thrown over his shoulder, and you can see he's got like a breathing apparatus on as well. He's just walking towards you, and he just comes into the circle of light of the oil lamp. In a moment, he's going to spot you. So, what do you do?
For want of anything else to happen, I'm going to try and hide in the shadows. Is my immediate gut reaction. That's what I sort of like look over to Lachlan, assuming he's our muscle. We've not discussed this previously, but he said he wasn't frightened by angry miners, so I presume he can deal with this. And I'm going to try and duck behind some piles of ore or barrels or whatever else might be around the place.
Excellent. Is anyone trying to tackle him, or are you all trying to hide out of the way and avoid him?
Oh, I don't think there's any need to tackle him. I mean, he's got a rifle for a start. I think I'm going to try and blend in with the shadows as well, and just see if we can overcome this obstacle without it coming to fisticuffs.
Excellent.
Indeed. Excellent. I'll follow them to the shadows.
Yeah, the slink's natural place is just there. Not there, in fact. It's not there.
Excellent. So, in the absence of any group roles, like there are in Blades in the Dark, where this would work really well, what we'll do is we'll have one person lead this sneak, and anyone who wants to spend stress to assist can do, but we'll have it but we'll have it where the stakes are sort of high for everyone. So you'll all suffer consequences if they fail. So feel free to spend drive or not to assist them. It's going to be a hide roll, I think.
This is surprisingly not Waldemar's speciality, so I'm happy.
Really?
Yeah, I spoke up first, didn't I? So I'm happy to lead it.
As you're dragging us into the shadows with you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take one of my points of drive for an extra dice. There, Gav.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Cunning drive.
I am sans drive, I'm afraid. Spent it all.
Yeah. Take what you need.
I don't know what you've got. You tell me how many are you spending?
I'll spend one.
Yeah, you can only spend one to assist.
So yeah, it's fine.
One or zero,
as long as it's
options.
one.
Yeah.
I'll have one in that case. Right, I'll just roll with 4 dice. Let's see what happens. High stakes. What's the worst that can happen?
That's about the worst that could happen.
Right, we've got a mixed success. We did get something out of it.
Okay, so I think you're gonna. So what you try to do is avoid him. I think you managed to do that. Yeah, I think I know how this is going to work. Cavendish, you drag people quickly to the side. There's a little side passage you can go into, and you quickly get people out of the way. And you can see this man slowly sort of walking past. You have to really recede into it, but it seems that this passage opens out a little bit as you sort of pull back, as there's all 4 of you in this cramped passageway. And Cavendish, as you are sort of making room for people, you just lose your footing a little bit, and soon the sort of floor of this mine gives way a little bit, and you're all 4 of you plunged deeper into an old excavated chamber. You feel yourselves rolling down into this, bumped and bruised. You emerge in an old worked out area of the mine. You can see there's some light out in the distance. Maybe there's something that leads to there, but it is where you are here, dark, until your eyes sort of adjust to the light, and there's a really thin green glow you can just about make out. I'd like to all mark a point of body mark. Is everyone still able to do that?
Yeah, that's okay.
Wow. After Olu had layered up Waldemar in clay, when he put his clothes back on, he decided he'd stick a bit of body armor on there, just to soak some of that, just in case we found something a little bit physically exerting down below. He's close to marking 3, so that body armor should prevent that.
Cool. Yeah. So your armor has taken it. You've got some stout leather on it or whatever that will take it from there. And yeah, within this green glow cavern, you begin to hear some sort of cries echoing through it. At first, you think they may be human, but closer listening, it's far less than human. I think they're going to where you can see the light off in the distance.
So from my pocket, I would like to produce one of these newfangled electric torches that they sell in the high-end stores, using one of my gear picks, and after potting it a few times to get the battery seated, turn it on and shed some light upon the situation.
Fantastic. And you do that, and it illuminates an old worked out cavern of a mine. You can see there's a sort of treacherous route up that will lead back to deeper in the mine, where they seem to be actively still exploring, because there is indeed an oil lamp there. Treacherous it would be, but by the electric light it should be easy to do. So you can begin making. It's one of those sort of, picture the scene. It's going up into this area. So there's a sort of pathway that's been carved in, and a rope that's been sort of carabined up to the side. So as long as you can use one hand to pull yourself up and steady yourself on the rope, you can cope with the steepness of it as you do. But if you had to sort of lose both hands, that would obviously mean you might fall quite some distance down. And you can begin climbing up towards the light, towards where, and you feel you can almost, alongside these cries, you almost feel you can hear the sounds of industry ahead. Your electric torch, though, begins to sort of gutter, which is unusual because you thought the advantage of electricity was that it didn't do that. And there's no wind to be found until Cavendish, you feel a chill go through your bones. Lachlan, suddenly your eyes go blank for a moment and you can't see anything. Albemarle, as you fiddling with the torch, it shines again brightly in your eyes, but you see a shadow pass before it. Waldemar, as you have to sort of, you grasp for the rope, but your hand hits something sort of insubstantial and cold, as if you were going through a thick freezing fog, and you sort of slip on it and do it. And as you look around, you can see there are just dark shapes darting and passing through you, almost insubstantial, chilling you to the bones, as you sort of stumble this way and that to try to keep grasp of the rope and make your way up here. How are you going to tackle this problem with these strange, haunting, clearly occult beasts that are besetting you? Cavendish, you solved the last problem, so I'm going to turn to maybe somebody else who wants to shout up with a solution for this.
I would like to understand them better first, and I'd like to risk to attune to them, opening out my occult senses to try and understand if they mean us harm and why.
Okay. I'm gonna put this as high stakes because you imagine they do from what they are.
Yes.
Attuning to them might be dangerous, but this is a role. This might resolve it for everyone if you can do it. And I'm going to say that probably this is one where you're taking all the risk yourself.
Of course.
So it'll be a sense, I think, to attune, won't it?
It would. My extend my senses means I can add my current 2 resistance, and I will spend an intuition for a mighty 5 dice.
Fantastic. What could go wrong?
Lots. A 5 is my best.
You do indeed attune with these things. These are cave wraiths, and as you meld into their terrified, frightened minds, you get a sense of something even more terrified deeper in the mine that maybe was something they once were a part of. And you can feel them flitting around. You feel excruciating pain as parts of them, as you look, it's as if someone's like cutting you and bleeding you and taking blood. You've probably, I mean, it's steampunk, isn't it? You've probably had your bloods taken before as a catch-all medical treatment for whatever ailed you.
Leeches probably, or cupping.
Yeah, and this is like the most painful, like backstreet quack thing that you've done, and it goes on for ages, and they just get a sense of this happening again and again. And I think that as you attune and share this pain with you fall to your knees, just grasping onto the rope, and maybe even let out a cry as you feel this pain course through you. But as that happens, the wraiths see you as no threat and maybe sense that maybe you hold the secret to the end of this torment. I'm going to ask you to mark 2 marks of bleed.
Okay. So I have as my final equipment pick, I have a ward, which will soak one of those 2 bleeds.
Fantastic, yeah.
But one of the side effects of being a weird and my attunement is if I ever let them in and take 1 or more bleed marks, I also gain additional information. So I would like to ask you a question about the source of the bleed, please.
Please do ask me the question.
And Albemarle, actually on his knees in great pain, even grunts this question out to the moving shadows. How can we lay you to rest?
And you get a sense from it, just says, release the last of our kind. Release him.
and I'll struggle to my feet as the wraiths begin to sort of back away, and very sort of haltingly and through the gritted pain say, "There is something trapped. We must release it for this to end. But I am near spent."
Cavendish will be stood there like this, as if he's the one pushing back the wraiths.
The bead of sweat
Yeah,
that you put on from like
little vials.
yeah, lovely. And you can, as you get further in the mine, you see there is indeed a hive of activity before you, and you're able to emerge in sort of vast chamber, chained to a wall at the far side is a strange tentacled beast. Each of its 10 limbs is sort of chained to the side of the wall itself, and each one has sort of box with vials and readings on it, like that are going this way and that. You notice on each of them there's the manufacturing like Acme thing of Eons, your rival corporation, and about this beast, which is about sort of 30 feet high. You can see there are each of its tentacles has sort of rubber pipe into an incision that's been made, and it's being drained of this bright green liquid. You can see, and you can it's very much alive as it pulses in front of you. Below it, you can see there are a mixture of scientists and men like the one you encountered before with the rifle slung over, just standing guard. Judging the scene, it's almost like the men standing guard are as much making sure the scientists and the miners do their jobs as they are watching over the beast, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sort of strong smell in the air of not just sweat and a confined space, but also of something sort of tangy, something salt, as if this beast is sweating even as you come into it, that sets your hair on edge. And there are miners taking sort of big vials of this green liquid, just like picking them up in wheelbarrows full of it, with it swilling this way and that. They're all in protective gear, but you notice that the guys with rifles have got like really good full body armor protective gear. The miners have got like mining helmets and like big rubber gloves, but they're wearing like vests underneath, and this liquid is like spilling this way and that as they roll it down the mine floor from that. You can feel Albemarle, a kindred spirit from what you attune to in this beast. So you have a moment, the four of you, to decide on your course of action, as you all, I think, realise this is the source of Undark and all the evil it has created. Let's have a little sort of behind a rock on this ledge above the scene, because you've sort of come out above it. You've got the height advantage. Have a quick discussion. Discuss what you're going to do. What's your course of action here?
This thing is evil, but I feel a pity for it.
I agree. I'm not sure who I feel more sorry for. The thing they're milking on the wall there, or the poor wretches made to work with its ichor.
There are many victims here.
So
let's not become one of those.
Yeah. When you suggested that we might release it, do you mean release it as in free it, or release it from its torment? Or perhaps a bit of both? Because I suspect, although it has no human emotions that I can detect, that it may want revenge on those who have tormented it. If we could perhaps free it from its bonds, it might do us the work of defeating so many well-armoured riflemen.
It is a dangerous presence, but a dangerous present freed is not being exploited. I agree, Cavendish. That is a fine plan.
If it turns out to go on a monstrous rampage, we can always deal with that as a separate issue. But first things first, I think.
Any sign of this Wallace Cove?
Sorry, there's not a sign of anyone in charge apart from the men with the rifles. I'm sorry, Waldemar, you were.
I freeing the beast would certainly give us an advantage over the weight and numbers that these guards have. I wonder, as we've been discussing this, a look around, what in this place might be of use to us, a master of the game.
Oh, fantastic. That's your power thing, skill,
Yeah,
whatever they're called.
scout.
Oh, so you spend one intuition. What in this place might be of use to us? I think that, yeah, it's not. Let's go. I'll go obvious with sort of intuition that this is the end of the mine, and they're still at the process of extending it. So your eyes are drawn to maybe a pile of sort of TNT that's been piled up quite close to one of the restraints on one of this beast's tentacles. From there, there are some mining explosives there. As you look, you can also see that parts of the ceiling joist. This is obviously a big chamber to put so deep in the hills. Look to be in fairly poor repair, as if they might be something you could do. And the other thing that is obvious to you is that the only people who are sort of committed to their work in here seem to be the guys with rifles. You know, the people adjusting the dials and the miners are doing it under egress. If there weren't men with guns here, they'd be out the door. This is not a duty they want to do.
I think that these miners don't really want to be here. I think they're being press ganged by Wallace and his thugs. But Wallace has come with quite fiery ammunition here that we perhaps can exploit. I'm sure, Lachlan, this is the sort of thing that would be very exciting for you to light a torch to, perhaps. And maybe there's
got
some
my beady eye on it. Don't you worry.
Yeah,
Seems to be a solution.
Maybe there's a way to liberate this this creature, and then at the same time incarcerate it and all its ne'er-do-wells alongside with the use of this poorly placed dynamite.
So how we're going to do this, because this is sort of a big set piece thing, is we're going to, I mean, maybe this will be in the full game. Who knows? We're going to do a sort of mini skill challenge. So you need to get a total of 4 successes, and you each need to make a roll. If you don't accumulate the 4 there, then somebody else can have a second go to do it. I'm reading that the intent is to free the creature somehow, and then sort of deal with the aftermath, whether it wreaks its revenge on the people capturing it, or whether it just runs away to live peacefully in the hills as a tentacled creature that's been tortured by humanity, is something for another quest possibly. So I'm going to say maybe formulate your plan and maybe think about what skill that would be you would use, and we'll see how we get on with. We can do it in whatever order you want, but we need to get a success, which a partial success would count as well, but you'll be taking some consequences from that, from everyone, to successfully achieve that goal. And then we'll work out sort of how that fits together afterwards. And we'll see these as sort of individual shots as we go around of people executing bits of plans. And then we'll work out what it is altogether from there. Okay? So does anyone want to go first?
Yes. I would like to make a dash for the explosives, please.
Yeah, I'll preempt you slightly just to help you out, because I was going to distract. So if I do that first and then everybody else does their thing, that probably makes it more sense.
Perfect.
So yes, I'm going to rush out at one point and throw a lump of something, a rock, at some of these rifled guards and get them to follow me by chastising them and berating them. And then when I'm out of sight of the others, I can use my magic power, which is to teleport to short distances. So I can teleport back to where they are, but no one will know that's my power because no one else will have seen it. But yes, my goal is to get some of the guards out of the way, and then I can just teleport back, and they'll be confused and not know what's going on.
Excellent. Do you want to distract is something, isn't it? Distract is hide.
Yeah, I'll go with that. That's happy. I'll spend a point of. Can't remember what it's called. I was called it stress, but it's not in this game, is it?
It's drive.
Drive, that's it. and we'll see how that works out. All the twos. That's not good, is it? Is there something I can do about that, Mr. Gem?
I believe there is. You can spend a resistance to reroll a number of dice equal to your hide.
I'll do that. Oh, yeah, yeah, got it. Yep, I'll do that. So it's a slightly smaller pool, but it can't be any worse, he says.
Well, you say that.
Turns out it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so I probably like lose line of sight back because of the twisty Teddy cave, so I can't teleport back again because I can't see them.
I was going to go with you do teleport back again, right. But the thing about teleporting into a place full of guards is you never know whether you're going to teleport somewhere safe or somewhere dangerous. And I think it's it's out of the frying pan into the fire kind of situation, as you distract a couple of guards and do that, and you blink into one place and there's a guard there, and sort of blink quickly before he turns around and appear right in front of a one, and there's a rifle butt straight at your face, smashes you to the ground as you're sort of scrabbling away. And the beginnings of, certainly this guard knows there's something up. The rest of them are just a bit confused because it seems functioned as a distraction. Doesn't count as a success, to be clear, but it has distracted them. There's a bit of sort of running this way and that. Would you like to mark for me, please, a body mark?
I would. I'm looking a bit battered now. I'm just opening mouth to say, I'm with the inspector's office as this rifle butt hits me in the face.
Yeah, they have no truck with that. Okay, so Gals has been. Who's going to go next?
I believe Ben wanted to.
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to sort of. I'm going to try and make the best use of that distraction as I can, and leave the safety of our boulder, and go sprinting across the area towards the left pile of TNT, dodging through people and vaulting over things as I get there.
And then, so that would be move, I think, to run, dodge, or navigate?
I think so. And let's see. Let's drop a drive into that as well, just to sweeten the pot a little bit.
Cool.
That'll give me 3 dice, and I've got gilded in that. I'm not sure if we've said that out loud before, what gilded is.
We haven't.
Okay.
No. So that means if you use the gilded dice, which will be the first one that appears in the dice roll, you can recover a point of drive.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to be rolling my 3 dice. Here they come. My first one is the 5, so I'm going to use that. So that's a mixed success, but it's a gilded one.
Excellent. And it is indeed a success. So you duck this way and that towards the... duck this way and that towards the explosives. You get there. I think there's a moment where you have to sort of slide down around to evade it and get crouched behind them. And as you look down, you see that all up your arm is a pool of this spilt green liquid. So you're going to mark a bleed mark.
Bleed, you say?
Yes.
That's quite good news in a way. All right,
not taken
because when I have bleed mark, I'm a tenacious explorer. So now that I have a mark in bleed, I can gild an additional die on my move, strike, or control rolls while I'm in danger. So this has done is get my blood up.
Excellent. So you're behind it. Do you want to have set the explosives off or not, or do you want to?
Oh, if I can, yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Let's get those rigged up.
Okay. There's a sort of you managed to rig it up. There's a sort of one of the tentacles of this beast comes free and begins flapping around this way and that. There's now people running everywhere. You don't have to be too stealthy from that, as they're ordering miners to get the contraption back on it, and the other 2 tentacles either side of it are beginning to show the strain of it as it begins to get free. Shane or Jag, do you want to go now?
So I have an idea, Jack. If you okay, so while they're running around, sheltering the guttering light of my electric torch, I am flipping through my arcane texts looking for the words of control and the symbols of magic scribbled down by half-mad occultists in the past. As I am looking to attempt to find the words of power to channel my will towards this creature, to urge it to tear itself free and strike only those who are armed and not the innocents.
Nice. I mean, definitely high stakes. That's sense to attune to it.
Indeed. I'm not understanding, so unfortunately my speciality won't kick in, but I'm going to blow two drives.
Lovely.
And so, yeah, Albemarle yells out these words of power and urges it, and that is a 5. 2 5s, I suppose.
Yes, as they echo, and you might the other two. There are 3 tentacles free now as they begin to smash, and they are indeed beginning to smash the armed men and leave the miners who are backing away very quickly from this scene and taking advantage. You know, there's sort of wheelbarrows full of green liquid being tipped over as they just run for the doors here. You also see that one of the supports is straining a little bit. We'll even say, I think, from that Gaz, the guy with the rifle above Cavendish, takes a sort of ichor-laden swipe to the side and sort of gets knocked down, his rifle thrown just out of reach of both of you as it happens, as he's you're both on the ground stumbling to your feet. But Shane, those words of power do exact a price on you as you flash back to the pain, and the monster reaches into you as well, so I'm going to get you to mark a point of bleed. You're on mute as well, if you're going to...
Knew it was going to happen. Great. So could I ask a question of the source of the bleed then, as is my ability?
Yeah, so the source of the bleed is your arcane texts.
Right, not the creature.
Yeah, which you would know that dabbling with power like this is... And maybe you get a sense that this creature maybe isn't as, obviously it's tormented and a victim in this situation, but maybe it's not the good guy in the long term. You see what I mean?
In essence, what I'm looking to understand is what is it going to do when it gets free? So am I content I've controlled it enough that it's not going to start laying at the moment to the innocent?
At the moment, keyword there, but yes, I think we'll say at the moment it's going to wreak its revenge on just those that have wronged it.
Grand, thank you.
Jag, in this scene of chaos, what are you going to do? What's Waldemar going to?
Waldemar is going to absolutely start inciting and supporting the miners to get away, adding to the distraction, the confusion, all the rest of it, and maybe that causes a little bit of panic amongst the armed guards, so that they're not quite sure whether they're supposed to be beating down on them or running away or firing on the beast that is getting out of control. That's all smoke and mirrors, to be perfectly honest, because what he's really doing is something quite illegal. He's ushering all these people out, making a big song and dance about it, and pocketing a fair few of these containers of green liquid vile blood, and he's gonna, if he needs to, he'll take a bleed containment vial as one of his gear, as a thing to encompass him in gathering one or two samples of this for
definitely
for future research and maybe trade in the black markets, but certainly to other bodies that have other resources other than Eon will probably be able to make good use of this and spread the knowledge.
So, in terms of what you roll, are you rolling sway to usher them out and have that as a side effect, or are you rolling to hide to sleight of hand some of this? Hide, go for it. Sleight of hand this now. I should say we said 1 success each. I forgot to mention before, a critical will be 2 successes, and we need 2 successes. So that just in case that comes up. It's not going to happen now, obviously, that we've said it. But
I've got 2 hide, so I'll be rolling 2 in there, and I will add a drive as well. So I'm on 3 dice. So might happen. 3 dice. I got 1.
It's 1 success. We need 1 more. So another of these tentacles spills out as you're gathering your bleed. From there, you manage to evade too much danger. Most of the miners are out now, certainly free of danger. And there's tentacles being ripped from the side of the wall as this beast frees itself. Let's cut back, though, for that final success to Cavendish. There are two of you on the floor with a rifle sort of fingertips out of reach there, and a tentacle just smashing this way and that. The beast, Albemarle, you notice, is obviously both of these people are armed now, because that's a weapon that's near both of them as it begins to like sway this way and that. Cavendish, what do you do to try and escape or try and free the beast?
In a surprise to no one except the guard in front of him, Cavendish produces his flash powder and smog bombs and disappears in the confusion and smoke that this generates. Smoke bomb! So yeah, I'm gonna blind him with some flash powder and then drop a smog bomb to make good my escape and cover our exit from the chamber if possible.
Excellent. That sounds like Hyde.
It does, doesn't it? I've got to spend my last drive point to try.
I like to think that you're doing that and then just actually teleporting. Completely unnecessary.
I mean, I do, but other people might have to run away. So, if I'm spending a gear, does that give me anything extra, or is that just a narrative element?
Just a flavour thing.
Okay, no problem. I get 5.
Ah, fantastic! Yeah, so I think the flash powder goes off in the smoke bomb. There's another. I don't think it's a rifle, but I think it's a whack of a tentacle comes towards you. So you're going to take another body mark.
That would be my 3rd body mark. Is that bad?
Your 3rd is okay, actually. It's when you can't mark anymore that you take a scar.
Okay.
So your 3rd is okay.
So thankfully the gigantic tentacle helps propel me towards the exit as I'm smashed in the back.
And you are able to make good your escape, and you all are, as you say. And you, as you do that, you feel the mind begin to collapse, and you are able to return back and somehow escape the town, while this beast you have freed wreaks, at least to start with, a carefully targeted scheme of revenge on just the people that ailed it and kept it captive against its will. Eons, obviously, is going to hear of this and realise that some terrible sabotage attack has taken place against one of its flagship mines. And certainly Mr. Wallace is not going to be happy and is going to want some words with your circle when he finds out, if he finds out it's you, in a later adventure, which we might return to when the actual game is published. So thank you, gentlemen. Let's just do a little round off with a little sort of cutscene of each of you recovering from your travails, either back in Newfaire or on the train or wherever. And you can do it, just pipe up whenever you want to do it. We could do it in an order, or I could give you an order to do it. Probably better if I give you an order, isn't it? Let's do sort of Gaz, Shane, Ben, Jag. Do you want to start, Gaz? What do we see of Cavendish recovering from this? There's a little montage at the end.
Well, Cavendish did take a good beating, so he's not up for a lot of physical activity. But we do see him in a smoky back room with you can't really see the other figures because it's quite dark and there's this blue haze of cigar and cigarette smoke. But the figure you do notice is Wainwright, the guy from the expo, who's just happily pulling back a big pile of coins towards himself. As Cavendish is rolling his eyes and slamming down a useless dead man's hand on the table, which is no use in whist whatsoever.
Lovely, nice one. Shane, what do we see of Albemarle?
We see Albemarle in a fine dressing gown, a la Ebenezer Scrooge, sat in his chambers in his very posh house, reading a book. Albemarle haunted his entire life in this house. Looks out into the darkness and says, "I can beat you," and all we hear is just a strange, ghostly laugh.
Lovely. Ben, what do we see of Lachlan?
Lachlan's out on a long walk. He finally got that hike, and he's out in the totter grass, and he's taking a little break, sitting under a tree, the sunshine coming down through the dappled leaves. So he takes out his little journal and starts to scribble out a little sketch of the tentacled beast that he saw only a couple of days before, when suddenly there's a tiny little splash on the page in his lap, and he dabs at his nose with his handkerchief and sees it comes away with a glowing green glow.
Lovely, lovely. Finally, what do you see of Waldemar?
Waldemar is relaxing or trying to get some relaxation in a massage parlor in the Red Lamp, to just heal or relax some of the pains that he's suffered on this assignment. On the table next to him is one of his regular contacts who he's struck a deal with, and you can see just the slight exchange, and as the towels are swapped over, a vial of delightfully green pigmented liquid replaced with a stash of delightfully green tinged notes as he enjoys the warming embrace of a few filthy lucre.
Fantastic. Thank you a lot, and thanks to our listeners. Hope you enjoyed that. To say there's another series of videos playing this game that are very successful. I'm sure we'll get as many views as Critical Role get with their Candela Obscura thing eventually,
if not more.
But yeah, if not more. I think it was 316,000 on Twitch the last time I saw, so I'm sure we'll get there pretty quickly in a couple of weeks. So thanks for listening, and watch out for more Unconventional GMs videos in the future. We've got more lined up for you.